One of the biggest questions that comes up for new players getting into the Pokemon trading card game is standard versus expanded. And like what does that mean? What cards can I use in standard? What cards can I use in expanded? And let's talk about the differences between the two modes, why you should care, which one you should focus your efforts towards, and all of that stuff. And yeah, let's get into it. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about standard versus expanded. And we're going to start with standard because standard is the mode that I play, and it is the mode that Pokemon officially supports for their IRL tournaments, and most of the focus around the game is around standard play. And with standard, the way that it works is that the newest set of cards are eligible for play and older cards are removed from play. And this is so that they can keep the meta fresh. This is so that they can maintain a certain level of balance within a subset of cards and allows the game to move forward and let them try new things and not have to worry about how older cards react to the newer cards. And they can just kind of have a more controlled meta that way. And it also forces players to buy more cards. All right, so what cards are eligible in standard? There are some amazing resources such as justinbasil.com. I'll put the link in the description of this video and you can see like the exact list. But at the time of this recording, you will be looking for cards that have a regulation mark on the bottom left-hand corner. Right now, these are letter F cards, but if we look at something like a Zacian V, for example, a classic card, one of the most goated cards of all time in the game, it's got a regulation mark D. So if you're watching this before the 2023 rotation, cards D, E, and F are currently legal for play. D is the oldest set. When the next rotation happens in early 2023, D cards are gone, and it'll be cards E and F that will be eligible. E, F, and G. Yeah, G is going to be next year. So E, F, and G after that rotation, those older cards move out. So the pros of standard, you get to play with the current meta. It's generally a little more balanced because it's a smaller set of cards. It's the newer set of cards. These are cards that are more readily available in stores, and you're not paying premium prices for cards that are out of print. And it's the mode that Pokemon focuses on the most in terms of IRL tournaments and all of that stuff. I personally play standard because at the time I had a really hard time trying to get expanded cards because they're older cards, some older sets. There's like years of meta that you have to catch up on, and I just said no. I'm going to focus on standard, smaller set of cards. They're easier to get. A lot of the focus is here. That's what I want to play, and that's why I play standard. The cons of standard are that it is a smaller set of cards, and cards go away. And that means there are scenarios where you have decks that you love, but when key cards rotate out, those decks are either not as good or you just cannot play them in that mode at all. And I think that's going to be a problem for a number of people that play this game. Again, spoilers for a video coming. The number of players in expanded on PTCGO is higher than it is in standard, and I think a big part of that is players don't like to let their cards go, and once they get that card, they want to keep playing with that card, so they'll follow it through to expanded. The other challenge with standard is that they are adding new cards all the time, and that's great, but the meta is shifting. Some people love the fact that the meta shifts constantly and there's always new cards to play with, but it gets really hard to keep up with the meta because you're constantly having to get new cards to keep up. So that's kind of the pros and cons of standard. Personally, I prefer to play standard even then because it's easier to get the cards. It's a bit more controlled of a meta, and trying to get expanded cards is really hard. Now let's talk about expanded. Okay, I'm going to pull up my favorite card of all time. Expanded. It is a format that allows older cards to still be eligible. It is everything from Pokemon Black and White all the way up to the current set of cards and going forward, assuming expanded is still a thing that Pokemon supports. And you will know that these cards are currently expanded because there's the easy way to spot if a card is expanded is if there isn't a tournament marker on here. So ADP does not have that, and it is not eligible for standard anymore. Why would you want to play expanded? I think the biggest thing is that cards don't go away. Pretty much everything from the last 10 plus years is still eligible for use in expanded. You don't have to let your cards go, and you can keep playing with it. It's also an opportunity to play against a wider variety of decks because there are way more cards that are eligible in this format, and you're going to run into some crazy stuff, and you too will be able to build some crazy combinations of old cards and new cards that do absolutely wacky things. Like, I've seen decks that don't attack and they just take 6 prizes straight up. I've seen decks that run through the entire deck all in one go on the first turn. There's all sorts of wacky stuff. There are combinations with Dialga V-Star and another Dialga where you can take like 3-4 turns in a row. It's crazy. The problem with expanded is that it's really hard to get into expanded at this point because a lot of the best cards are older cards that are not easy to get. Something like, off the top of my head, something like a Versus Seeker or a Computer Search. I don't really know too much about expanded, but I do know that it can be difficult to get the really old cards that are still really good in expanded. The other challenge is the meta of expanded has gotten absolutely crazy. Because it is a decade's worth of cards and there's all sorts of insane combos in there, it can be really hard to keep up or understand what's going on, and just get blown out because you're running into stuff that you're not ready for or have seen. But for me, the biggest thing was just like, I can't catch up on a decade's worth of cards. I can catch up on standard cards where it's like 2-3 years, but 10 plus years, it's just not it for me. So there you go. That's kind of the gist of standard versus expanded. Again, standard is a subset of the latest cards. Expanded is from black and white to whatever the current era is. If you like to play in a more tight meta and have the meta evolve, and you're okay with cards going away, standard's probably the way for you. If you want to stick with your cards forever, expanded is probably a better bet for you. But with the trade-off that the meta is absolutely crazy and expanded. So there you go. That's kind of a quick run through of standard versus expanded. If there's anything you want to add to the conversation, please feel free to add it in the comments. And if you've got any other questions, let me know in the comments as well. But otherwise, thank you for watching.